So Dave, great seeing you, man.
Yeah, good to see you,
Appreciate
Mike.
you making time to sit down with us. So
My pleasure. This is awesome. Yeah.
obviously, I know what you do. Everybody who's going to be watching this video is going to be like, who is Dave and what does he do? So introduce yourself, introduce your company, tell us what you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Dave Fox, co-founder of Quantify Environmental with my business partner, Tom Ulanowski, who's out in our BC office. Quantify Environmental is an integrator of industrial IoT. So we're kind of at the cutting edge technology of getting industrial IoT into manufacturing facilities, and we provide a turnkey solution. So what you see in front of you is the hardware portion, and we'd come to a facility, find out what they need, suggest some areas that we think you should monitor, and then install this system and then tie that and integrate it to the software side. And then meet with that manufacturing team at all levels, sit down around a table together, get that data live in front of them, be it water, electricity, HVAC systems, plumbing, all of that. Sit down, see that data in real time, minute by minute data flowing in on this dashboard, and then having real conversations about where are there opportunities, where can we put alerts, what sort of automated reporting do you need, and then it really goes out from there. We've even had conversations with finance teams because they get once a month billing for their water, but now we can digitize it, one big breakthrough. The other one is they can start trending it, understand the real cost minute by minute, day by day.
Mm-hmm. So your company's kind of unique because you sort of sit between a Techmar. So a Techmar controls company through TN4 would be a very basic, so like a smart thermostat, smart relay control. And so that would be a very low cost solution. Not I don't want to bag on Techmar, but not as intelligent as something you would be doing. And then on the other scheme of things, you'd have like a Johnson Controls, right? So where you look at a Techmar solution, somebody could go in and they could automate a boiler plant in a house or light commercial, maybe do it, I'm going to make some numbers up, for say $1,000. JCI could go in and hit it with like the Elon Musk routine for $1 million.
Right.
You guys sit in that sweet spot where you can go into a smaller manufacturer or even a larger manufacturer, and we'd say in the scheme of things you might be in the $10,000 range. Right.
Yeah. And I think I should say right off the bat, we're not a controls company for a lot of reasons. And you're right. That's the way we sit in this industry and amongst all these other markets. And we just saw a real need and now a real want for monitoring our systems plant-wide. Mm-hmm. A lot of these companies have multiple different facilities, and as you know, these facilities are quite large. And a lot of them are older facilities. They would have been built in the 50s, then they would have had an expansion in the 70s, then another expansion in the 90s. Basically, the whole facility is run on analog systems, so it's very pen and paper. We see data being collected, very low communication between team members. So we feel we don't need to provide that controls element like Johnson Controls. They've got that locked up. They provide a great service. The need for real-time monitoring and trending data is equally as strong, and that's the value we bring to these facilities, that they can get all their analog systems up and digitized and communicating amongst all their team members.
Yeah, and one of the advantages you bring, because as you know, I have a weird background. My background is in HVAC and software. Like it's not a normal skill set to have. And so the advantage of you not developing your own controls is you can then have that trust factor with that end user. Like we have some of the stuff in front of you that's branded, but the reality is you're not, mad sciencing something. You're actually taking off the shelf controls, using software, bringing that into an UbiDots platform, so you can actually tell that plant facility manager, like, listen, it is our software, but we're working off a hardware platform that is agnostic and reliable. It's not something you guys just dreamed up.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We're certainly hardware agnostic, and for many reasons. One is ultimately we're trying to provide the best value and solution for our clients, and basically no hardware provider has all those different sensors. So it's up to us to go into the plant, find out what they need, then we go back, do our research, and find the best fit for sensing pH. We might use one sensor for that, whereas inline flow, we use a different hardware and a different sensor for that. It's our job to then take all that data, get it to communicate with some sort of base station. In this case, we have the NCD-produced edge computer, but we can use any sort of base station, then take that data and get it onto the dashboard. Because ultimately, that's the interface that our clients are looking at, is that dashboard and that trending data. it's kind of a means to an ends with all this of how we get it there. We're just specialists in knowing the best packages to pick up and get them to all communicate to one another.
Well, and you're saying exactly what I did. We've talked before about this in private. Like, I developed a wireless control platform, and when I built the first one, it was with off-the-shelf controls. We went from there, and it gave that reliability of, I know this hardware works. It's just to make sure now my software actually works with it.
Exactly.
The nice part for you guys is because you're not tied to a specific hardware, you have the opportunity to go into a building, okay, this hardware provider doesn't have what you need, but we can do it with these people. They have the hardware we need.
And to the next degree, you know, a lot of these facilities, some of them are a little more cutting edge, or they've got a new machine in on a line, and it'll have an output of data. So then we can just, you know, whether it be Modbus or any other sort of interaction, we can tap into that and start getting data that they're already producing, but they're not doing anything with it. It's just lying dead in that machine. So let us tap into that and get it all back again onto that one dashboard. And that's what's so cool about UBDOTS and their support and what they're enabling us to do is we can have, you know, your minute-by-minute water flow on your main, amperage draw on multiple air compressors, amperage draw on HVAC systems, all on one dashboard. And the power of that is we've seen in the past, you know, one plant might have water on a dashboard and then electricity on another dashboard. But as we all know, especially with an HVAC system, you're having electricity, natural gas, and water all overlap on top of each other going through one machine. So it makes sense that you want to see all that trending data in one location. And that's what UBDOTS is enabling us to do and provide, you know, reporting on top of that, alerting on top of that, and real-time visibility. So
I mean, you could go into a project and you could say, okay, I've got a standalone temperature probe that they have their own dashboard, they have their own software, and I'm using CTs from somebody else. And as you identified, it's two different systems. So some people would say, no big deal. But again, as a nerd, an HVAC nerd, by pulling that all into the UBDOTS platform, you can now do things like an on-demand live COP calculation.
That's it.
There is nobody needing to go and, okay, we need a guy or a gal to pull this data together on a piece of paper or an Excel spreadsheet, whatever the case may be. You're using UBDOTS and your knowledge of hardware. Like, let's not say you're not hardware guys, because you really are. You're finding hardware in the market, and you're doing the interface between that hardware and the customer in one platform.
That's it.
The other thing that I think is really unique about you guys, and again, I've done this and been down this road, is that you guys, and we have it actually on display in front of us, you don't need to be tapped into their local network, right?
No,
one of the biggest challenges you have is I've done work with police stations, for example. You can't roll in and be like, hey, have you got the Wi-Fi password?
No, exactly.
Right. So maybe walk us through like what you guys do, especially like this device in particular. I know what it can do. So how do you get that data and how do you transmit that data back to your mainframe?
Perfect. Yeah, no, great question. So we try to be our own self-sustaining support for that facility. So and able to achieve that, like you say, I guess we are in quite a few ways hardware guys, and we've kind of put together what we're calling our base station here, or tech stack. So it's several components, but this is what every facility is going to start with, and it can receive up to 50 different sensors throughout a facility. So starting on the back end here, which builds the main base of it, this is an uninterrupted power supply with surge protection. Pretty basic off-the-shelf sort of technology, but again, it's all to achieve that independence from the facility. So if there's power outages, if there's surges, all the data is still coming in. It's all being supported by that uninterrupted power supply base. On top of that is the edge computer. So that's receiving 900 megahertz radio signals from all of our sensors here, and it's plugged into here, so it's being powered on this. And then to get that data received from the sensors, it's being slightly processed by this edge computer. It then moves over to the LTE hotspot. And the Teltonika LTE hotspot is a pretty powerful tool. It enables us to take that data, send it up to the web via LTE, and again, we're off the plant Wi-Fi because we don't want to be connected with that at all. In fact, the best meetings we have is the IT guy comes in and he says, you know,
what do I have to do? Nothing.
We say nothing, and he's like, great, and he leaves the room. So that's the best meeting we can have. With Teltonika, it's really cool. We can then also remote into this system. So that way, you know, we do have a lot of facilities across the country. Nor anyone on my team can be flying there and you know, fixing this sort of stuff. We need to do reboots, update scripts, any of that sort of stuff. We can do that all remotely through the Teltonika LTE hotspot. and control the edge computer.
Yeah,
so it's that two-way there.
The way I like to articulate that is that when people, especially people that don't understand what we're talking about, what does that mean?
Right.
The easy example is think of the Tesla, right? When you buy a Tesla, like right now, they're trying really hard to get self-driving. We won't start on that. You know, they're saying 2024. It might have been every year.
Every year it's been
right. It's been rolling. But the reality is, everybody who owns a Tesla right now will have the ability to have self-driving when they do release it through over-the-air updates. So really, what you're describing here is the same thing you have in your smart car.
Yeah.
That has the ability for not only for you to log in and see what that device is doing, but also see what that device is doing and push new firmware that pushes new features out.
Exactly. And we can do that all behind the scenes because, again, we're dealing with people that are making car parts, they're making hot dogs. Like, that's their focus. They want to be more sustainable. They want things digitized. They want to reduce their overhead costs. That's what their focus is on. They don't need to know about this operating in the back room. They don't need to know about the firmware. They don't even need to know about the sensors that we're going to source to put in that facility. All they want to know is, how much water did I use today? Why was there a spike last week? How can we optimize this system? And with real-time data, we can sit down once a month, pull up the dashboard on a screen, and have those conversations and say, you know, why was your HVAC running over the weekend? In fact, we just put in a bunch of thermocouples at 7 warehouses in the last week. And with only 4 days of data, we were able to see that 2 warehouses, their operating temperature on the weekend was 30 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
And it was storing barrels.
Yeah.
So right away with that immediate real-time data, we can then have the conversation, an informed, data-driven conversation with that operator. Say, why was your warehouse at 30 degrees? Could it have been at 15?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go back there. Let's change the set points, drop that temperature 15 degrees, and immediately you're saving all that electricity and natural gas.
Yeah.
So that's the real impact it has.
Well, and the nice part too is they can articulate to you, like, we're sitting in this room and we want to understand why it's uncomfortable. You can come in and put temperature sensors in. We can put CTs on the lighting and the heating system, whatever the case may be.
That's right.
You know, we can do a lot, and you can give that end user their own dashboard, or you can actually analyze that data for them.
Exactly.
You guys are providing hardware and software that's custom to not even just buildings. Like, you and I are talking about the pilot in my house of, like, hey, let's throw some wild sensors into my house. Not that we need to, but because we want to. Let's see what we can collect, see what we can do.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there really any limit to data you can collect? Because I can't think of one.
Not really, and that's a really exciting part. So we'll come into a facility, and with our decade of experience of optimizing systems and monitoring systems and making facilities, manufacturing centers more sustainable and more profitable, with all that experience, we can come in and say, look, I can almost guarantee you we're going to find a water opportunity, because a lot of people don't realize how expensive water actually is.
Yep.
And if you have for example, in Guelph, if you have a baseline flow rate of 10 liters a minute all the time, that's equivalent to $18,000 a year going down the drain.
Yeah.
If we have real-time data to identify it, we can eliminate it. You get that money back every year. We then also know, let's get amp loggers on every motor that's over 50 horsepower. So basically all your air compressors, ammonia compressors, again, if they're running overtime, we can shave that back, again, save some serious money.
Well, the thing we need to identify as well is that you can not just only sense things, you can turn devices on and off. So you look at these large devices, you can see what it's doing, you can then give them a strategy of, okay, we can see this is not being used. There's literally nobody in this plant after 5 p.m.
Exactly.
We've collected this data, now they can turn it off, or you guys can even give them that ability of remotely, you guys can control this equipment.
We can control the equipment remotely. We would then work with the team to change the set points, and they would do that on site. Again, we're not a controls company, but we're giving them the visibility of this machine so that they can make those immediate decisions to do that. But to your question earlier of, there really is no limit, that's the most exciting part, is that, we'll install what we call our basic system on your water, natural gas, and major electrical users. We start to make a relationship, they see the value of this data, and then we have the really exciting conversation with a guy who's been at the plant for 15 years. He's working in a back room. He puts up his hand in a meeting and says, you know what? I really want to know the temperature in this room, or I really want to know the pH value in this pit. Can you guys do that? And absolutely we can. We've got a lot of great case studies of where someone's put up their hand and said, I want to sense this. Maybe it's carbon dioxide levels in the air, light levels, doors opening, closing. Those sort of nuanced projects we certainly have the sensors for, and it's that continual engagement with the team month by month to understand what they want and then build it into the system. And that's why we go ahead with this base station. It can receive up to 50 sensors throughout a facility. So, if you're starting off with a project, which we did with our most recent client, they just had 2 thermocouples in a warehouse going back to their base station. That's kind of the starter kit. But now we're having those conversations. Well, let's roll out 3 or 4 more thermocouples. Let's roll out a couple lamp loggers. And you can build this system up kind of like Lego. And once you're adding on all these additional sensors, the cost is quite nominal at that point.
Yeah, the other thing that's worth noting is people that are used to thermocouples go, well, I can run a thermocouple. That's right. But you're not running this thermocouple.
Exactly.
The key thing is that it is a self-contained thermocouple that we can shove it up in the corner of this room. We don't have to do anything with it. It will
Magnet
wirelessly
snaps on, and it's it. So we send it to you powered up, ready to go. You're taking it out of the package. You're walking over to the area you want it. You slap it on, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's industrial grade. It's the expandability of the system, because you're right. A plant manager or anyone can go out, buy a bunch of remote thermocouples or thermometers, throw them around their plant. Great. Now you've got one basic dashboard to look at that temperature. But I imagine you want to tie that temperature to the HVAC that's controlling the temperature, or to the water flow into the cooling tower, so on and so forth. Well, then you got to piece on another system, which is another dashboard, and you got to learn that system. With this, all one system, you learn one software, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I have firsthand experience with having to look at multiple dashboards. That's what got me building my own dashboards.
Right.
Looking at, okay, I need to bring all this data together through APIs, which you obviously are very familiar with. Like, let's get all these APIs, let's draw all this data together, and I was also using UbiDots, right?
Like, they're fantastic.
There's a lot of capabilities. In your case, you guys are choosing to only read data, which is very smart. In my case, I was reading and writing data, but there's a lot of liability if you get into a big plant and go, we're going to start turning stuff off. I get why you're saying
that's the thing.
We don't really want the liability of turning things off. You just manually can program it to turn off or do whatever you need to on site.
That's it. And really, like, the other ask is, with these facilities, it's this idea of, well, let's crawl before we walk.
Absolutely.
We don't want to jump to controls when we're not even monitoring the system to begin with.
Yeah.
So let's at least monitor it for 2 or 3 months. Then we can start talking to a controls company if that's a route you want to go down. The other power of this data is a lot of the funding that's out there and a lot of ESG tracking requires this data to be collected. And in the past, audits and assessments would get a snapshot of maybe a week's worth of data. You'd then use that data, expand it over a year, which, right away, that's a fault. You can't expand 1 week of data over a year and make projections on that. You need that.
There's this disconnect. If you can interpolate, you can't extrapolate data.
That's it, exactly.
And it's like looking at a pump curve and assuming just because it started like this, it just keeps going straight. No, it doesn't. It goes like this, but you don't know what it actually looks like.
Exactly, and water, electricity, it's also dynamic that we need this real-time visibility. Get those pre-opportunity baselines, do your implementation, keep all this running, so it's going to tell the whole story of that project. Once you turn on that new machine, new VFD, reprogram your HVAC system, it's going to capture all that. And then you're going to see that downslope on that graph, which is a really cool story to see. And at the same time, you're getting those 2 data sets to bring to your funder and say, look, here's my pre, here's my post. In UbiDots, we've got widgets that calculate those savings, and they're updating every day. And you can show in real time, this is the savings I have. And that's the other cool thing we found with this company and engagement with our clients. We came at it from a sustainability, profitability point of view, but what we're really starting to see is employee engagement. And that's the really exciting part, because as soon as you put this data on their phone or on a dashboard that they're now looking at, they see something running, they go, I'm going to go
turn that off.
Exactly. They turn it off, they come back, they see it on the dashboard, and then on top of that, every week that's tallying up. So now when they go for their review, they can pull the dashboard up and say, look, the opportunity I implemented for this company has saved $12,000 the last 6 months. And that was all on me. Not me, but the person, right? We give them the power to have that conversation and show the impact they're having. And for us, that's the biggest joy of the job. Like, we just started making a widget that tracks the equivalent tons of GHG emissions. So we did it for another air compressor, and I think we're over 2.3 tons of GHG emissions saved, which is so cool. And that's only over 3 months. Like, we're really excited to roll this out to other systems and see all the other GHG savings that we can have and get actual real data of it happening, not just kind of guessed data.
What sort of ROI? So if we looked at you guys going into an average plant, I mean, it's a tricky question, I know, but what would be an average ROI? So if I owned a meat packing plant, brought you guys in just to monitor my water, for example, What kind of ROI can people expect on that?
Yeah, it's not a tricky question. It's a straightforward question. Actually, I know we're both big LinkedIn contributors, and I put up the other week that our case studies are our projects, because every single one has turned out that way. And the last one we had for ROI, we just put a sensor on the water. That project was about $15,000. And within the 3 weeks it's been on, we've saved them $2,000 in water. By the end of the year, that's going to be $45,000. And that's just from one sensor monitoring water on one location.
Yeah.
So the ROI, we're talking 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, that's huge.
Oh, it's massive. It pays for the project right away. A lot of our electrical opportunities, same deal. If you can see the data and turn these things off and prove the savings, I think we had another one, within 2 months we saved $12,000 on an air compressor.
Yeah.
Like, this stuff pays for itself quite
Well,
quickly.
so that's a very fast ROI. And again, as the guy that's a hands-on guy, one of the things I like to also point out is that you're not only saving that money, the wear and tear on equipment that's running more than it needs to be running.
Yeah.
You're not just saving, replacing. So again, we'll just talk about a pump, for example.
Sure.
If I have a large, 50 horsepower pump that's running all the time, I probably have somebody doing service on that every 6 months.
That's it.
But on top of that, how often am I replacing that versus you guys come in for whatever dollar figure it is, you've not only paid for that system, let's say within the first year, but you're not replacing the equipment every 5 years. You don't have service technicians coming in.
That's
and
it.
let's be honest, sometimes the service tech is coming on, I don't know, you might be paying for them to come back 2 or 3 times.
Well, and I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's another cool feature that UBDOTS does. Let's say you're having an issue with your air compressor or an HVAC system, like a air handling unit, for example. If we've got an amp logger on there, your team has access to your dashboard, secure data. But if you just want to share that graph with your HVAC specialist or your air compressor technician, you can just share that graph. It's super easy. Click share, copy that URL, send it to them, even in a text. They're sitting in their service van, they can open it up, and at their call, before your call, they're already looking at the amperage draw of your air compressor, and they can start having informed decisions when they get to site.
Yeah. We use a control, it's called Symphony, and we use it on a lot of heat pumps. So it logs 152 data points every 10 seconds.
Amazing, yeah.
And it boggles me, people that don't use it. It's like a $300 device. It goes on your $20,000 heat pump.
Yeah.
Right? This $300 device means that if a technician calls me or my tech team and says, hey, there's a problem with this piece of equipment, give me 10 minutes. I'll tell you exactly what is wrong with that piece of equipment.
Right.
And whether Dave needs to go, whether I need to go, like varying skill levels.
They can do that remote assessment and save a drive there, save a lot of time.
Just in maintenance costs, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Right? You save them so much money not sending a tech out, because as somebody who did residential and commercial service work, I would drive to Windsor to go look at a Laidlaw facility, and all they would tell me is it's not heating.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, I would drive out there and turn the thermostat back on, and then drive 3 hours back to Guelph, and you would get
you're charging all that.
You would get a $500 bill.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, "Well, we want to try to save $500."
You can avoid all that.
Stuff like this is really the future.
Absolutely. And as far as ROIs are concerned, even if you're not having any issues now, like I mentioned, things are dynamic, things change, new lines are put in. You're always having that value being tracked. And so when a solenoid valve does fail open, which they're designed to do, you're alerted. I don't want to say how many plants I've been to and there's a failed solenoid valve, water's going down the drain, and that's the solution. But the solution's only found when you have this technology and our experience to find it, change it, and then start tracking it so you're alerted when it happens again, because it will happen again. And this is where you need to keep track of things.
Well, and people more and more are caring. You're seeing an entirely new generation that's more focused on sustainability than profitability. You've heard me say it before in different meetings, and we've had lunch and we've talked about this. I'm a firm believer in people before profits, not just sustainability.
Yeah.
And this kind of technology allows you to easily go into any facility of any type, whether it's a house, a meat packaging plant, this nice office we're sitting in, and give them something that will provide those solutions for sustainability.
That's it.
But what I like about it is if you want to make sustainability cool and matter to everybody, make it save them money.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can democratize the data and you can have competitions, which is really cool. If you've got a company that has multiple plants, one Western plant, one Eastern plant, they're basically making the same product.
Yep.
You can now have competing dashboards.
Yep.
Or in one plant, you can have an AM shift competing against a PM shift. How are they able to produce X kilograms of product with this many less liters of water versus the other shift? And then when you put that dashboard like on a screen in a cafeteria and the staff are now seeing that, again, immediate staff engagement, people want to compete, they want to have fun with that, and it's all in the vein of sustainability and profitability. everybody wins.
Yeah. No, I think it's awesome. I think next time we get together, we should actually plan to go to a site where you've got this installed, and we can really show people what it's about. But
absolutely.
Obviously, appreciate you taking the few minutes today to talk about it.
That was great. Thanks for all the questions. Yeah. Really appreciate the opportunity.
I know I'll see you again. We'll be doing some CrossFit together.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.